I want to talk that way when I stand up. Yeah, whenever you see something of that magnitude or the thought, and everything, I just want everyone to know here that we do not believe animals talk to each other. Okay. Anyway, so it's good to see all of you here this morning. I'm excited to continue this series, Family Reruns. And over the last few weeks, we've talked about several. And last week, we talked about one that hits home a lot. We talked about watching your mouth, because it's very easy to say things you shouldn't say, get yourself into trouble. And if you're like me, as soon as you hear a message like that, you immediately change and you don't do anything like that anymore. And your mouth just zips right up and you have no trouble whatsoever. And I'm sure that's the case for you guys. It wasn't for me, though. As soon as I went off the platform, I went back in my office, and Jeff was there with me for a few minutes, and I took off on something that I should never have said. So it was kind of like, what? And then I went into this whole thing. I went in, put sackcloth and ashes on. I just got to tell you, it's the hardest thing to do. It really is. And any of these reruns that we've talked about, and when I say reruns, they basically are our family values. That's really what they are. The things that we want to make sure we're passing on to others so that they understand, especially the younger ones and the next generation that are under us. And it can be in our family. We need to be thinking of it as in our church, and how important it is. And today, today's big move up Sunday and everything, got big things planned. Your kids, some of your kids moved up to become something else today. I even saw some people saying, oh, I have to sit in here today. And so it was like, sorry, so we got all these things going on. And then, over a period of time, so many times, I think we forget what it is when people are looking to us or expect us to do certain things and everything. And just like Simba's starting to figure it out, everything the light touches is ours, kind of thing. And his reaction is, wow, like that's going to be a great thing. But it's a heavy responsibility to be passing on things to other generations. It's important for us to remember it. And it's not just an easy thing to do either. It just doesn't automatically happen. So that's why we're doing this series. That's why this series, I believe, is very, very important. We picked Mother's Day to Father's Day to do this. And so today, in these next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about some very, very important ones and wrapping it up. And as we do, I hope that you are remembering these reruns. Don't worry, we will review when we get closer to the end, and I'm going to start making some posts on my own personal pages on social media, and so join me there, and we get a chance to do that. It's just Greg Faircreek at Instagram, and then and Greg Trout at Facebook. All right, so love to have you there. I'm not on TikTok. I just not. So anyway. So today we kind of launch into this one, and I'm excited about this one. It's one I love to talk about. It's one I believe is very, very crucial and very important for us. And if we get this right in our families, wow, what an effect. But if we get it right in our church, even more so, it's an amazing effect. And so I'm excited to be able to share this with you today, because I think that as we go into what I would say is a transitioning culture. A lot of things have been transitioning in the world today. I mean, it's just a lot. And it's creating a lot of change for most of us. Change in our lives, change in some of those kinds of things. And can I stop here for just a minute? Did you know the middle schoolers meet in this room right over here? Can you hear them? They're over there having cereal and all kinds of stuff today because it's move-up day. And so I think it would be better. So they're loud sometimes, okay? They're loud in there. I think we should be loud, all right? And so can we just cheer for just 10 seconds? It doesn't have to be long. But just cheer and make them know we're here, all right? Can we do that? Because we know they're there. We hear them all the time, right? And so especially if you sit on this side, you get double. You get the lesson in there, and you get what's going on up here, which means you probably don't get anything. So anyway, all right, so All right, on the count of three, let's cheer real loud so they can hear us, and then they'll say, what was that all about? All right, ready? And by the way, we have a new youth pastor, too. You know that, right? Have you met Keith? And so Keith's in there. Let's make it difficult for him, okay? All right, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. That's awesome. That's great. All right, so today, the rerun we're going to talk about is rerun number 4. Stability in our family relies on consistent servant leadership. Servant leadership is different than just leading. A lot of people think of leadership as a position that you get. You ever play follow the leader when you're a kid? Yeah? And following the leader, you had to do exactly what the leader did. And if not, you had to drop out and all those things. Or Mother, may I? You know, have you ever, or Simon Says, or all of those. You remember those things? And you had to ask the leader to do something. And if you did it, or you didn't do it right, or whatever. And Simon Says, if you got caught and you didn't, Simon didn't say it, then you had to be out and all that. Remember? And you depended on leadership for those games. And it meant that you had to be kind of aware of what's going on. Leaders have to be aware. There's so many things. But today I'm going to give you like 4 things that come out of a certain passage of Scripture from the Old Testament. And I'm excited about this because I believe that a lot of what happens and that we experience in our families, as well as in our workplaces, in the church, in our communities, wherever we go, is that leadership determines what's going to happen there. And how we respond to that and how we react is going to be a very, very important thing. So today we're going to give you some very practical things. But stability, if you're looking for stability and you want that to be in your family, and I think critical to your family is being stable in a time when everything is fluctuating and changing, it relies on consistent servant leadership. I want to take you to the book of Joshua. I want to tell you a little bit about Joshua before we go there. Joshua was the leader that took over after Moses. Moses, because he really didn't trust God and he disobeyed, was not allowed to go into the promised land. And so when he wasn't allowed to go into the promised land, somebody had to be trained and ready to go. And he had been training up this young man, Joshua. And Joshua was the one who you think of as being strong and courageous and all these things. And he was really meaning to pass leadership on to all the generations to come, because they were going to spread out then all over a country or a land, a grouping or place where we would know today as modern-day Israel. And that area, and it was actually back then, it was a little larger than what we see today on the map, but it was that area that they were taking and going in there. God had promised it to them. And so Joshua was going to be the leader to take those people through and to get them established. So when they first went in, there were a lot of people there that were very godless. And so you might read through the book of Joshua and go, wow, this was harsh or this was difficult. But it was people who turned their backs on God. And so when going in there, the story of the Joshua fighting the battle of Jericho and the walls came tumbling down. You remember all that, right? And the idea is that when he did that, he was establishing God's power, because God was the one who did that. He's the one who caused the walls to fall. And so all throughout this, whenever you see these characters in the Old Testament, you're really seeing the main character is really God in all of it. And so when we see the story of Joshua, Joshua is he's living based on that commitment and everything to who God was in his life and in the lives of the people of Israel. And it was important that he taught them properly. They needed to know exactly how to live their life. So we're going to go to the book of Joshua, and we're going to the last chapter. All right? We're going to the last chapter of Joshua. And he's about ready to turn the leadership over to everybody else, all these other leaders, and they were going to start dispersing and going into the land and taking over and living there. That was going to be their land. And so this is what he says. He's talking to the people. He's giving his last sermon, if you will. He's given the game plan for life, and he says, now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. It's really just a great statement. It's a theme verse that you could write on things and to remember and to memorize. Remember last week we had a verse that we memorized? Remember that? And I don't know if you prayed that Psalm 141 throughout the week or not from last week, but you know, what an incredible, basically, God, watch my mouth. Help me not to say things stupid. And I pray that prayer a lot. Matter of fact, you guys don't know this, but it's a moment that I have with Jesus every Sunday morning before I walk up here. God, please don't let me say something stupid. All right? And you say, sometimes he answers, sometimes he don't. All right, so the idea, though, here, this statement of fearing the Lord is the idea of respect. You've got to respect the Lord for who he is, and we're talking the Lord meaning Yahweh. The one God that they wouldn't even hardly utter his name because of how sacred they believed his name was. And so the Lord, and serve him. That is a huge statement here. Serving is something that sometimes we think is a choice or a decision that we can make whether we do it or not. But actually serving is part of the relationship we have with God. Jesus set the standard for this. When he came, he said, the Son of Man didn't come here to be served. I came to serve. And so it was an example that everyone was to follow. And so I wanted to say this, all right? This is just a little something for Greg to be on his soapbox about this morning is that if you want to grow in your relationship with God, if you want to feel close to Jesus, then you need to be serving in some capacity or another. And that means serving in a way to use your gifts and abilities and your talents and your time and your energy, And the whole idea is that you do that and you depend on God to work through you to accomplish whatever you're doing to serve. You don't just do something easy. You do something that's kind of out there a little bit, something that's going to take some effort, something that's going to take some sacrifice on your part. And when you do that, it means you're going to have to depend on God. Joshua knew that this would keep them depending on God every day. So I just want to challenge you. And matter of fact, I want to strongly challenge you and urge you that if you're really wanting to grow and you're really wanting to know God and you're really wanting to have a close relationship with Jesus, then you've got to be serving in some capacity, some way. And I don't mean, I tied my kid's shoes today. All right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the things where we, on purpose, know that we are doing something intentionally for God. And we should always be looking for something to stretch us. Because that's how we see God work. When we know we can't do it and God can. And so that's what he means by this. I cannot stress this more than this right now, that if you're not serving in any capacity, I'm going to tell you, get ready for a mediocre, at best, Christian life. Okay? All right, good for that one. All right. And the whole idea is to do it with what? What's the word? When you're faithful to something, it means you don't give up. It means you give it your all. You don't back down. And so, matter of fact, here's the thing. In a marriage, what do we pledge? In vows between a husband and wife, what do they vow? Faithfulness, right? I'm going to be faithful to you. Meaning, I'm not going to divide my attention among other people. You're my first priority. You're the person that I'm going to pour into. So my life is going to be about being married to you and you alone. And so in that idea of faithfulness means that other things can come in and attack you. Other things. And it's not necessarily even another person, although that can happen. And when it does, if it does, it's because usually we have opened the door for not being faithful, and it's usually because we've backed off of serving. In some capacity, in our relationship in a marriage, if you back off of serving, then you're going to feel that that's the way it is. If you're in a friendship with someone, if you're working with someone, if you're serving in the church and you back down on serving a little bit, your faithfulness will seem like it's waning. And even God's faithfulness to you will seem like it's waning because you don't see and you're not interacting with him in the way that he's designed it. We respect God. That's why we serve him. We respect him because of who he is. He's the Lord. He's God. There's no one like him. There's one God, and he says, you know what? Respect and serving him with faithfulness is what is key to life. All right? So I just want to tell you, I want to go back to this and just remind you that serving is the foundation for leading well. If you're in a situation, if you're in a home, a lot of people say, I'm not a leader, and I'm not necessarily saying a positional leader, but I'm telling you, if you have influence, which if you are in a family, whether you are a parent, whether you are a child, and you can be a child and not be married yourself and still be in that family, you still have influence there. And so you have an opportunity to have influence on the lives of people. And that's what Joshua knew, that if they were going to succeed as a nation and to follow God, then there had to be certain things that they were going to do. Okay? Make sense? Everybody good? So serving is the foundation for leading well. Let me show you. All right? I hope that's not landing on the roof. You hear that? All right. The blessing of being close to the base. All right, so here we go. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Stop here for just a minute and remind you what this is from. This goes all the way back to the foundation of the Israelite people. When and where did they come from? Father Abraham had many sons and many sons. That's where it starts. And it was in Ur. It was the nation Ur, the territory called Ur. And the Chaldees lived there. And Abraham was there, and he was called out by God to go with his wife Sarah and the rest of his family and take all of his belongings and move to this promised land where they would start a nation. And before that, there were all kinds of countries beyond the Euphrates River and Egypt, all of these places. And when speaking of Egypt, he's talking about when they were slaves then later. In Egypt, which a lot of the people he was speaking to, their families would have been there and would have experienced that. And so remember how God delivered us from that, but remember it was very easy to want to go back to the gods of across the Euphrates, you know, like where Babylon would have been and all of those, the Assyrians, all of them. They had this urge every once in a while to go back to that. It's like, oh, I got this little statue when I was in Egypt, and it's so cool, and oh, sometimes I like to pray to it. Okay. Or it could be that it's a practice that they picked up, something that took their time or their effort, and what it would do is it would hinder them from serving the Lord. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I can tell you that the things that will hinder us most from serving the Lord are the things we make gods above God. Okay? The things that we serve that are above, that we make them above God. So if you've got something, you can make your family a god. You can make your children like an idol or like gods. And everything you do is about that and them and everything. And it does not lay a stable foundation for your family when you do those things. When you make something else, it can be anything. It can be activity. It can be money. It can be where you live. It can be friendships. You know, all of those things can be more important than God in your life. And when it does, I can tell you that you're going to serve those things before you'll ever serve God. So you have to be very careful because you can go back to the things. You can think you can make a decision not to do that just like they did. Hey, they came out of these things. They came away from it. But a lot of them held on to it. And then they would get somewhere and they'd go, oh, wow, that looks pretty cool. How they worship over there, that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to go worship that God. And that's what a lot of them did. A lot of them found themselves distracted away from the one true God, Yahweh. They found themselves distracted from him, and they were, making up their own gods. I mean, these gods were all man-made, all right? What good is a man-made God? Okay? I mean, things that we make are temporary, right? And they're not worth it anyway. So the point is they have no power. They have no ability to change your life. They can't give you purpose. So what's the point of serving these gods, these small g gods that are man-made? What's the purpose of that if you have the one true God that you can serve with your whole life faithfully? So it goes on, it says, but if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, okay, hear this. He says, throw away those gods. Don't do that. But, if it doesn't seem real desirable to serve the Lord, the real one true God, look what he says. He goes on, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. In other words, you kind of draw the line and you kind of say, this is going to be so important to me at this point, and it's not. And that's what they were facing. They had to make a decision. You're either going to do this or not. There's not a lot of gray area in this, and I think today we have found ourselves in a culture of gray. Okay, and so it says, just you're going to have to choose, and if you're choosing this way, if you don't desire, then I guess have at it. It's going to be not great. It's not going to turn out good for you. Whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are serving. In other words, where they were at right then, the Amorites were all around, and the Amorites had gods, and they were like convincing them, hey, come and worship our God. He's pretty cool. Or our gods, we have more than one. You only have that one God. We have many gods. So the whole idea was, you may be wanting to do this. This may be what all of you decide. All of you may decide that there's something more important than God. And then Joshua says this to them. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. It was just a decision, all right? Now, I want to show you this. I'm going to use this verse over and over again and pull each phrase out of this, and I'm going to find some things that hopefully will help us understand what it truly meant to be a real leader, like Joshua was, a servant leader. So the idea, the word but, all right, it comes in and stops the whole thing. It's like, no, not me. We're not going to do that. So he says, you may decide to do this. So choose who you're going to serve. Go out there and choose those gods. That's going to be your decision. But, so he stops right there. I'm going to tell you this. I believe that servant leaders decide to make a difference. Servant leaders decide that they're not going to just do something because that's what everybody else does. Servant leaders decide that they're going to act on their own. They're going to lead their families different than every other family. They're going to make sure that serving God faithfully is going to be at the core of who they are. And so they're not going to allow other things to detract from that. They're not going to let other things become more important to them. And so what happens is the servant leaders, when they decide to make a difference, things change. That means you've got to lean in. You got to lean into the needs around you, and that's how God can use you to lead. You lean to lead. So in other words, the things that are needs around you, and when I say needs, I want you to think of the influence you have, the people you have influence on. And you might say, I don't have influence on anybody. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do. You either have good influence or bad influence, but the people around you, you are around them. And if you withdraw yourself and don't have influence, that's bad leadership, all right? But if you get yourself involved, or if you do it based on positional, I'm going to lead because I'm the one in charge and my way's better. Or it's just a basic that it's like, I'm the dad, or I'm the mom, or I'm the, whatever. It would be very easy. You could even do this at work and say, I'm the boss. And the way we lead is not necessarily going to get anybody to follow us, but it may make us feel good about what we're saying, okay? And our words are going to be pretty empty. If we don't get people, if we don't meet the needs around us, can I just say this? Our kids need us to act like adults, all right? Some of the things we're doing as adults, and I put that even loosely as a term, it's scaring the kids to death. They don't think we know what we're doing. They think we're crazy sometimes. And I know this. I know this. Do you know why kids are so full of anxiety and concern and they're depressed and everything? It's because none of us can get our stuff together. Okay? It's important for us to lean into the needs, and our kids need us to be leaders. They need us to be leaders. Okay? And hear me. You might say, oh, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Just be careful that the way you're leading is not some decision or it's mandated by some influencer on social media, or it's what somebody else, some other parent is doing around you and pressuring all the parents to do it. Hey, parents, if you're a shamer out there, you're shaming your friends, stop it. Okay? If you're shaming your friends to be a certain kind of parent, other than one that is encouraging their kids to serve faithfully and to serve as a family faithfully and leading then stop, okay? You don't deserve a platform if you are an influencer that's trying to shame other people into doing things your way, okay? That's not godly influence. That's selfishness. We got quiet in here again. Are you guys okay? All right, good. Okay, just making sure. All right. You know I'm saying this stuff because I love y'all, right? All right, so the next one, the next part of the verse, the next phrase is, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. As for me, this is where you see the statement. He's talking about himself. He's not talking about everybody else. He's not representing as a collection of people. He's saying me, Joshua, my heart, my decision, me as a leader. Servant leaders, they take things personally, and they take personal responsibility. We could talk about responsibility for weeks here, because the Bible teaches responsibility, all right? Responsibility means that we're willing to take on whatever's necessary to accomplish things that are around us. We take initiative. That's what they've been learning the last month. Next door is taking these biblical principles and turning them into these things that are life application. And they learned about initiative, taking initiative, seeing something that needs to be done and doing it. Not waiting for somebody else, but doing it. So the whole idea is being a servant leader, you have to take personal responsibility. So if you see something going on, like in your home or around you, or can I just say this, even those of you who are younger, yet you have maybe younger siblings or you have younger people that look up to you. Can I just say this? Take personal responsibility for the things around because you're being watched. See, you're being watched. So just say this. Learning to lead yourself well is key to being a leader others will follow. So when I say leading yourself well, you're taking personal responsibility. It means that you're preparing yourself from a spiritual angle, that you are doing everything you can to be close to Jesus, learn from him, be humble. Be humble about who you are, knowing that you're a sinner that God can use. And hear this, nobody's exempt from this. God can use all of us. Now, you know, if he can use Balaam's donkey, and I would use another word, but this will go online. If he can use Balaam's donkey, he can use any of us, okay? I know he can use me, okay? So the whole idea is learning to lead yourself. And you don't know who Balaam is, look it up. It's in the Old Testament. It's a great story. All right, learning to lead yourself well is the key to have other people. If you're leading and no one's following, you're not a leader, okay? You're not a leader. You just think you are, okay? You're leading you and, you know, nobody else. Okay? Here's the point. If we're going to see our families different and changed, then we'll do what's necessary to prepare ourselves. That means confess sin in our lives. That means remove things that are in the way, barriers that have turned into sinful attitudes and habits and actions. We'll remove those things so that we're willing to actually lead them in a positive direction, serving God with faithfulness and respecting God enough to know that this stuff is against him. They're not just bad choices, okay? I think sometimes we want to say things are mistakes or things are mistakes, and they are. It's a mistake to follow sin, Okay? And it's a mistake to follow things that are going to lead you to sinful behavior. It just is. It's a problem. It's an issue. Now, verse goes on. Next phrase is, but as for me and my household, meaning my family, the people who live with me, the people who see me all the time, the people who see what I look like when I get up in the morning, the people who experience me before my coffee, you know? I see people wear t-shirts all the time. Coffee and Jesus, you know? Take that, Satan. And I'm like, okay, you know, the whole idea is that he was not going to let it just be him and his personal decision. And, well, you know, my family, they're my family. They got to make their own choice. I'm just tell you something. Stand up and be a leader, all right? Your family needs someone to show them the direction they should go. So it's my household is what he says. So servant leaders, they influence those around them. They make sure they take the little world. And so we might say, I had the opportunity to speak to the baccalaureate service for the graduates from Fairborn High School. So fun. I love doing that. I love being a part of that. And they were all right here, you know, in the rows right in front of me here. And their families were a part of the service. We host that here every year. And so, you know, I got to be the speaker this year. And one of the things about that is that when talking to them, I explained to them, you all are world changers. You can change the world around you, but don't try to take on the whole entire world. Take on the world that you live in. That's sphere of influence. Some people will have a small one. Some people will have a larger one. Some people will have huge. But with each layer it gets higher, the more responsibility you have to take on. And the more you're held to a higher standard when you take on that kind of leadership. And so just remember, those things are important. That group of people that are around you, that's your world. And you have the opportunity to be able to bring them along and help them through that process. So I say the servant leaders always influence people around them. That's really what leadership is influence. It's positive influence. And I say this, others will learn life skills by watching how and where you lead. I want to tell you, things are caught more than they're taught. And so if you live it out, if you live it the right way, if your kids and your grandkids see you serving God faithfully because you respect Him, and that's a part of your life, and you're taking responsibility for yourself and making sure you're where you should be, then I can tell you that they're going to see that and they're going to want that. That's the greatest chance you have for your children to follow your example and your legacy. It's the greatest opportunity you have is if you are the one who's setting that example and they see you. And so they're going to learn the life skills. If you take initiative, your kids will take initiative. If you work hard, your kids will work hard. If you are faithful to God and serve Him, your kids will see the value of that. So listen, it's not going to just happen by accident. It doesn't happen randomly. They have to be led for these things to take place. And then the last phrase in the verse is this, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. We will serve the Lord. This is what we're going to do. This is now our purpose. And this is how we're going to do it. So for me, I'm going to serve the Lord, and I'm going to lead my family to do that. That's what He said to all these people. He said, now you've got a lot of gods to choose from. Small g gods, they're not the real one. But if that's what you desire, then choose that, I suppose. You know, He wasn't telling them, now, you've got a lot of options. Go and choose the best one for you. That's not what He was saying. He said, I'm going to tell you this. You can go do that. It's not going to work out well for you. If you look at the rest of the chapter 24, He says, look out if you do it. And so it comes down to it. The idea is that we're going to serve the Lord. This is something He's leading His family, but He's now saying to everyone around. You want to have influence and you want to have impact in your friends and in your small group and with other generations here in this church and even in your community and around. Listen, if you want to have influence, then you've got to be the one that's leading the way and saying, this is how we do it. And don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that. Somehow I think sometimes we think that it's a private thing. But I want to tell you something. Serving Jesus is not private. Okay? It should be such a change in your life that people kind of go, what is going on with them? What is different about them? So, I take you to this. Servant leaders. Servant leaders show the way by their example. They live it by their example. Their life is an example. And what you do is more important than what you say. So you can talk about it all day long of how important it is to serve God. And I'll just tell you, I think the church in America, and let it not be true of us, okay? Can we make a decision it won't be true of us? Of course, you want to say, well, what is it first? Let me just tell you, I think the church in America is all about learning what it is to serve God, but when it comes to actually doing it, we don't. We love to hear and learn the Bible and learn all about the things in the Bible. I want to go deep in the Bible. I want to do all this. That's great. Know it, but it better change your life to where you're actually living it out. Okay? Because someday we will stand in front of God and He's going to say, how come you didn't do anything with this? Matter of fact, Jesus even said, if you know to do the right thing and you don't do it, that's a sin. Jesus said that. So come on, think about it, all right? What you do is more important than what you say. Don't make it about making sure these little quippy sayings are out there. Just live your life with an example of what Jesus can do in you and be faithful in serving Him. That's really what it comes down to. I want to take you to a passage of Scripture in 1 Peter, and this is really kind of wrapping up here today with this thought, okay? 1 Peter chapter 5. If you've never read 1 Peter, it's an amazing thing. Peter had gone through a lot. He became really kind of the primary leader of the apostles and the disciples, the followers of Jesus. He was really the guy who did the first big sermon after Jesus was resurrected and He went back to heaven. Peter was the one. When the Holy Spirit came on him, he was ready. And he preached, and lots of people got saved that day. It started a movement that has lasted till this morning at least, because here we are, okay? And so 1 Peter chapter 5 says this, and yes, it's speaking to shepherds of God's flock. But I believe that if we have a sphere of influence, we really are in the role of being a shepherd. And they use this idea of being a shepherd because a shepherd watched over sheep, protected them, fed them. When they got hurt, he would take care of them or she would take care of them. I mean, that's just what shepherds do. So listen to this. Think of this in the context of your family. If you're a parent, a grandchild, but even think of it, you might say, I'm not in that role right now. Well, think of it as maybe some of you have got aging parents, like my kids. And so they're going to have to start taking care of them. And so, okay, you get the idea, right? You know what I'm talking about. But maybe you're in that circumstance. But maybe you can even look at it as your family extended, or maybe that realm of influence, your work, or where you have a group of people, that group of soccer parents that you're around all the time, or Little League parents that you're around all the time, or whoever, the neighbors around in your neighborhood. Just think of them as the flock around you. And how are you shepherding them? Listen, be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them. Not because you must, but because you are willing. Sounds like a servant leader to me. As God wants you to be. Not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve. Not in it for what you get, but actually in it for what you can offer and give. And the verses go on, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd, this is Jesus we're speaking of, the chief shepherd appears, Jesus promised He'd come back someday. I believe He will. You will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. It's an opportunity. You're really going to get rewarded. This is the one thing that's true, that if you can be that one person that can shepherd a group of people and take care of them and watch over them. And I think your families are our families are ones that we can shepherd. And yes, I have a responsibility, other pastors in this church, elders, we have responsibility to shepherd this flock of believers here and to care for you this way. And can I just say, if you don't ever think that we're caring for you that way, then would you please let me know? I don't have ESP. I don't know those things, so let me know so that I can care for you better. Okay? But the whole idea is that this gives us a foundation for what we can do. Let me just tell you a little rerun today, and I want you to say it with me. Rerun number 4, say it with me. Stability in our family relies on consistent servant leadership. We talked about what it takes. And if you're wanting to see that outline again, please go to YouVersion, go to the church app and look at Bible messages and find that and look that over this week. Dwell in that concept. Am I really leading as a servant would lead? That's how Jesus led. I want to take just a moment, and I'm going to close here today by praying for you, but I want to do it with some intention. Because a lot of us in this room say, I've tried this, and things aren't going well. I've done everything I know to do. My kids don't follow. My grandkids are not following. They're not seeing it. My own children won't even hardly talk to me anymore. Or my parents have disowned me because of certain behavior or certain past decisions I made, and I just have a broken relationship with them. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this. How can I be a servant leader in a situation like that? How can I deal with situations and circumstances where my heart breaks for my kids, or my heart breaks for my parents or my grandchildren or my grandparents, or my heart breaks for people around me that I see going through these kinds of things. I see people at my work and they're struggling, and I'm trying to be an influential leader. I don't know what to do. And I've tried, and I see sometimes God doing things, and then it just doesn't seem like it's working. Or maybe things are going really great for you, and that's an awesome thing, but I can tell you that life being what life is and full of brokenness and sin, it won't always go that way. And so there'll be times when you don't know what to do. I want to show you this verse of Scripture from Galatians that hopefully will be an encouragement. And then I want to ask you, just to consider something. Let us not become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Can I just say to you guys, from my heart, don't give up. Don't give up. There's so much at stake. Eternity is at stake here. Don't give up. Don't give up on your family. Don't give up on your kids or your parents. Don't give up on anything about your extended family. Don't give up just because they may have given up on you or they may not be there. Don't give up. Don't get tired. Get your strength from the true servant leader who can lead you through it. And if he leads you through, you can lead through. And let me just say this. Please, lead in this church and serve in this church and be an example in this church. Don't give up. Don't give up on us. This is incredibly important. It's of great value, what we're doing here. Rerun this in your mind. Stability comes from true servant leadership. I want you to bow your heads for just a moment. And before I pray today, I just want to ask you, okay? I don't want anybody to really look around. I want this to just be between you and me, and Jesus is looking, okay? But would you just acknowledge, I could really use prayer this morning. I just, to be the leader I've got to be in my circumstances and situation, I need you to pray for me, Greg. Would you please pray for me, Greg? And I want to do that. And I want you to raise your hand if that's the case. Just say, yeah, that's me. I need prayer right now. I'm going to look around the room a little bit. Hold it up so I can see you. Yeah, I see several, many. For sure. Let me pray.